If the bullet in Dallas had passed just a few inches differently, America might never have gotten Vietnam the way we remember it, or the explosion of distrust in government that followed, or the darker 21st century that grew out of the 1960s. In our timeline, Dealey Plaza becomes a national wound. In this timeline, it becomes a scar that almost closes. Kennedy is hit, badly, but not fatally. The motorcade vanishes toward Parkland Hospital after the shooting. Then, sometime after sunset, a statement comes out. The president is alive. That survival changes the emotional chemistry of the country. Americans do not watch a young president murdered on live television's edge. They watch him return, thinner and pale, speaking through pain. He tells the country that violence will not choose its future. For a few months, the United States feels almost sacred. But survival is not victory, it is leverage. Kennedy enters 1964 carrying a strange new authority. Not the authority of a martyr, but of a man who looked into American hatred's machinery and kept walking. Every speech now feels like it might be his last warning. The first battle is not Vietnam, but the secret war inside Washington. That secret war decides what Vietnam is supposed to mean. The generals still see credibility in Southeast Asia. The intelligence world sees a test of containment. Kennedy sees a trap in a poor, divided country. American power can win every battle and still lose the story. He does not suddenly become anti-war as later decades understood it. He is too Cold War, too careful, too aware of weakness. But he slows the machine. Advisors come home in batches. Americanization of the war never becomes official policy. Saigon remains unstable, but Washington refuses to inherit it completely. That refusal changes the 1960s in ways no one expected. Protests still come, and draft cards still burn in public. Young people still believe their parents built a dishonest world, but no jungle war swallows 58,000 American names. The youth revolt becomes less about death, more about meaning. With war no longer dominating everything, civil rights move center stage. Kennedy pushes harder after Dallas, from conviction and political recognition. He understands what the shooting revealed about the country. America is not simply divided by policy. It is divided over who counts as fully American. Without Johnson's bulldozer instincts, the bill becomes messier and slower. It also becomes more fragile under pressure from the South. Southern senators drag it through the mud for months. The White House bargains privately and threatens publicly. The law passes, but victory feels less like triumph than armistice. In 1964, Kennedy wins a second term, but not through grief. His campaign runs on nerves rather than a national landslide. He runs against right-wing extremism and left-wing impatience. He also confronts a security state whispering into every crisis. His victory is real, but narrow enough to feel temporary. This alternate America first looks familiar, then strangely different. There are no helicopters lifting off embassy roofs in 1975. No single image of defeat haunts the Republic forever. Instead, Vietnam becomes a long, gray compromise. Aid, advisors, deniable operations, and negotiations blur into managed retreat. Eventually, collapse arrives, but everyone pretends it is not collapse. That matters because nations remember more than events themselves. They remember the symbols that taught them what happened. In our world, Vietnam teaches that government lies and loses. In this world, the colder lesson is government lies and survives. The counterculture still rises, but it feels less wounded and more absorbed. Psychedelic art sells cars, while rebellion becomes market language. Protest language moves into advertising without losing its dangerous rhythm. Universities become laboratories of controlled rebellion, funded and closely studied. Sometimes those laboratories are quietly infiltrated from the inside. The system discovers anger is easier without a graveyard. Kennedy himself changes too, publicly softer and privately harder. He stops trusting easy charm as a political tool. Behind the smile, he reads security briefings like personal threats. He asks why every agency builds its own foreign policy. The deeper conflict becomes institutional, not ideological. Kennedy tries pulling the presidency back from its post-war empire. The CIA resists quietly, without needing open confrontation. The Pentagon waits him out with patient institutional gravity. Congress smiles for cameras and feeds on defense contracts. The machine does not need to coup a president. It can simply outlast him inside the architecture of power. Ordinary life in this America looks cleaner on the surface. Airports are less militarized, and downtowns empty more slowly. Evening news is less soaked in body counts, but paranoia moves underground instead of exploding in public. People still suspect hidden hands behind the visible order. They have less proof, fewer martyrs, and no clear enemy. By the early 1970s, Kennedy is gone from office. He is older than his years and remembered differently, not as the murdered prince, but as the surviving president who spent his remaining power trying to slow the country. The country had already learned to accelerate without permission. And that is the paradox at the center. Saving Kennedy does not save America from itself. It saves America from one trauma while denying one clear mirror. The wound is smaller, but it cuts much deeper. The empire is quieter, but it becomes more durable. The dream lasts longer because fewer people see where it broke.